There is something you need to hear, and it might ruin the way you see yourself forever. It might dismantle the comfortable story you tell yourself about who you are and how you move through the world. You were never hard to read. Not to the people who truly mattered. Not to the ones who were paying attention. They already knew. They knew from the almost imperceptible way. Your voice shifted when you told a white lie, a subtle tightening in your throat that betrayed you. They knew from the way you laughed a little too hard, a little too long, when you felt invisible in a group, using the sound to fill a space you felt you couldn't occupy. They knew from the way you rushed to fill silences in a conversation because the thought of being seen in pure, unadorned stillness made you feel naked and exposed. Someone, at some point in your life, read you like a book. Not with words, but with quiet, unnerving attention. They saw the parts of you that you have spent a lifetime trying to control, to hide, to deny. And the most unsettling part, you didn't even notice it was happening because no one teaches us this. No one tells us that being truly seen is not a loud or dramatic event. It's subtle. It's slow. It's slow. It is a quiet, surgical observation. The best readers, the ones with the deepest perception, don't announce what they know. They don't confront you or call you out. They simply watch, they understand, and they never, ever forget. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche did not teach us how to read people so that we could gain control over them. He showed us the tragedy of what happens when we fail to. He revealed the danger of when we confuse the mask with the person, when we fall in love with someone's carefully rehearsed performance, or worse, when we become so lost in our own that we believe it ourselves. This is not a lesson in cheap mind tricks or flimsy body language hacks. This is a descent into the psychology of truth itself. It's about learning to read people at the level where their soul leaks out, in the pauses, in the deflections, in the subtle tone beneath the tone. And by the time we are finished, you will not just understand how to read others. You will be forced to confront the chilling realization that you have been an open book this entire time. This is not the beginning of clarity. It is the end of hiding. Chapter 1. The invisible ink. Most people move through the world, wrapped in the comforting illusion that they are a mystery. A mystery. They wear their confidence like armor. They speak with a rehearsed certainty. They present themselves to the world as a curated identity, a carefully edited final draft of a person. They do this not because they are inherently fake, but because they are terrified of being real. Nietzsche saw straight through this performance with a clarity that was both brilliant and brutal. He believed that people do not speak from a place of truth. They speak from a place of protection. Language, he argued, was not primarily created to reveal who we are. It was built to help us survive. It was designed to help us hide our vulnerabilities, to signal our allegiance to the tribe, to secure our place and belong. So, when you listen to someone talk, you are not hearing the unfiltered broadcast of their soul. You are hearing their mask explain why it deserves to be loved, accepted, and kept safe. We put far too much faith in words, but people leak the truth in all the places they aren't paying attention to. Truth is the invisible ink that shows up under the heat of scrutiny. It's in the tension in their shoulders when they say they're relaxed. It's in the way their energy shifts when a certain name is mentioned. It is in the profound misalignment between what they say and the emotional music of how they say it. Nietzsche didn't just study language, he studied contradiction. He believed that the most vital information is not found in what a person says, but in what they consistently avoid. Once you start looking at the world through that lens, people become transparent. The man who never stops talking, who dominates every conversation with his booming voice and endless stories. He is not confident. He is terrified of the silence, terrified of what he might hear if he ever stopped performing. The woman who is a perfectionist, who obsesses over every tiny detail and needs to control every outcome. She is not strong and organized. She is at war with a profound inner chaos she cannot bear to face. May her deface. And the people who judge the loudest, who are the quickest to point out the flaws and hypocrisies in others, they almost always hate in the world what they cannot stand in themselves. People are not deep, unsolvable mysteries. People are patterns. They are walking, talking patterns of behavior, shaped by the unfinished business of their past. They are shaped by the pain they never processed, by the childhood wounds that never healed, by the fears they never named. These patterns are repeated over and over, day after day, until they become what we call personality. And when you begin to see people this way, as a collection of patterns rather than a fixed identity, you will never be able to go back. Because what once looked like arrogance, you will now see as a desperate shield for insecurity. What once felt like a personal rejection, you will now understand as an act of their self-protection. The things that once hurt you will now simply make a sad, tragic kind of sense. A tragic kind of sense. You don't need a degree in psychology to read people. You just need to do one simple, difficult thing. Stop believing what they say and start listening to what they are constantly, desperately trying not to show you. Because Nietzsche was right. People are not hiding from you. They are hiding from themselves. Every profound spirit needs a mask. That's what Nietzsche wrote. And like most of his insights, it wasn't just poetic. It was dangerous. It's dangerous because once you truly understand it, you can no longer live on the surface. You stop believing in the curated performance. You stop trusting easy smiles. You stop mistaking a display of kindness for genuine purity. You stop thinking that the person someone shows you is the person they truly are. Masks are not worn because people are malicious or fake. Not usually. Masks are worn because being authentic in a world that is not ready for it would cost too much. We learn this lesson in childhood, the first and most brutal school of social survival. If you cry too loudly, you are labeled too sensitive. If you question authority too much, you are too difficult. Photos. Yeah. If you show too much excitement, too much passion, you are too full of yourself. So, we learn to adjust. We learn to sand down our sharp edges. We become palatable. We shapeshift into the version of ourselves that we believe the world will accept, that our parents will approve of, that our peers will not reject. And we call this edited, watered-down version of ourselves our personality. But Nietzsche knew the truth. He knew that this identity, as most people present it, is a mask. It's not a lie, not exactly. It is a survival mechanism, and he observed that the deeper and more profound a person's spirit, the more complex and layered their mask becomes. Because the more you see and feel and understand about the world, the more dangerous your raw, unfiltered authenticity can feel, both to others and to yourself. But here is the catch, the glitch in the system that allows us to see the truth. Masks leak. No matter how carefully they are constructed, no matter how long they have been worn, they are never watertight. The truth of a person seeps out through the cracks. They leak in body language. You see it in the stiff, raised shoulders of someone pretending to be relaxed. You see it in the fidgeting hands of someone trying to project absolute confidence. They leak in the tone of voice. The overly practiced, smooth cadence of a politician, which feels hollow and disconnected from human emotion. The laugh that is just a fraction of a second too loud, a little too sharp, betraying the anxiety it's trying to cover. When a conversation gets too personal, when a question hits too close to an insecurity, when a silence stretches on for just a moment too long. The real identity of a person does not live in what they say. It lives in their contradictions. It lives in their contradictions. It lives in the chasm between their words and their energy. The person who claims they are fine, while their jaw is clenched so tight a diamond could form between their teeth. The one who preaches relentless positivity, but cannot sit still in a quiet room for 2 minutes. The person who tells you with a dismissive wave that they don't care what people think, while obsessively checking their phone for notifications and mentions. That's not deception, not in the way we usually think of it. That is the mask cracking under pressure. Yeah, and if you are paying attention, if you are sharp enough to see it, you will realize that the real person always lives in that space beneath the performance. They are not polished. They are not clean. They are not clean. They are raw and scared and beautifully, tragically unfiltered. When you stop believing in the performance, you don't just start to read other people. You start to recognize how many masks you have worn yourself. The cool mask, the intellectual mask, the easygoing mask, the spiritual mask. And that is where true clarity begins. Not when you finally decode the mystery of others, but when you finally have the courage to stop pretending. Reading people is not magic. It's not a sixth sense. It's not some gifted intuition that only a few rare minds possess. Smart people, perceptive people, don't read others because they're special. They read people because they pay excruciating attention to the things that most of us are trained to ignore. They have disciplined themselves to see the repetitions, the patterns that others dismiss as random or insignificant. The truth is, people are shockingly predictable. Not because they lack depth, but because they are driven by a handful of core wounds and unfinished stories that they keep acting out over and over again. You will hear someone say, "I just have a bad feeling about them." But a truly smart reader doesn't rely on vague feelings. They rely on data. Small, consistent, subtle signals that repeat across different conversations, moods, and moments. It's a science of observation. It begins with the vocal data, the tone shifts. That slight, almost imperceptible hesitation before someone agrees with something they don't actually believe. The way their voice rises in pitch at the end of a sentence when they are trying to sound confident but are actually seeking approval. These are not just sounds, they are confessions. Then come the contradictions, the most reliable data points of all. The person who says they are so chill and hate drama, but their life is a constant whirlwind of conflict and chaos. The man who says he doesn't care about status, but subtly name drops powerful people in every conversation. The woman who talks endlessly about her fierce independence while her actions consistently beg for someone to choose her and take care of her. These aren't accidents. They are not slips of the tongue. They are symptoms of a deep internal civil war between the person they want to be and the person they actually are. And then there is the data of timing. That strange, pregnant delay when you ask someone a direct, personal question. That moment when they start repeating themselves, using filler words just to occupy the space and avoid a real answer. That sudden, jarring shift of topic when a conversation hits too close to a nerve. These are not flaws in their communication. They are defensive maneuvers. your defensive maneuvers. They are the psychic equivalent of a smoke bomb, designed to obscure the truth and allow for a quick escape. The smartest observers don't look for what is loud, obvious, and performative. They look for what is slightly off. They don't obsess over the details of the story being told. They watch for the emotional fingerprints left all over it, the things people don't know they're doing. Because real clarity isn't magic. It is the discipline of pattern recognition. It is the art of learning how to stay quiet long enough, and still long enough, to see what people are desperately trying not to show you. And once you have trained that muscle of perception, the world stops feeling random. You stop getting blindsided by betrayal or disappointment. You start to see the moves on the chessboard before they are made, and the mask that everyone around you is wearing, it starts to look like glass. Chapter 2. The end of hiding. As you begin to see through the architecture of human behavior, you stand at a dangerous crossroads. This newfound clarity, this ability to see the patterns behind the personality, the wounds behind the words, can easily curdle into cynicism. It can become a tool for judgment, a way to feel superior, a cold and intellectual power that distances you from the messy reality of the human heart. But that is the amateur's path. Nietzsche did not hand us these truths so we could become better manipulators. He gave them to us so we could become free. The ultimate purpose of learning to read others is not to decode them, but to finally stop being fooled. Most of all, by yourself. The first and most profound freedom you gain is the freedom from resentment. There is a moment that will happen to you quietly, suddenly, and without warning. You will be sitting in a conversation, listening to someone complain, or posture, or boast. And, for the first time, you won't react. You won't take it personally. You won't feel attacked, and you won't feel the familiar, hot urge to defend yourself. You will simply see them. You'll see the pattern, the way they over-explain to justify an insecurity, the way their confidence feels hollow and performative, the way their silence is a shield, not a sign of peace. And suddenly it will click. This isn't about you. It was never about you. The things that used to anger you, the coldness, the arrogance, the passive aggression, they don't sting in the same way anymore. Because now you recognize them for what they are, wounds wearing armor. Their behavior isn't a message directed at you. It's a cover, a shield built around a part of them that is hurting. When you finally see that, something irreversible happens. Anger dies, and a strange, stark empathy becomes inevitable. It's not the sweet, sentimental kind of empathy. It's the empathy of a physician who understands the disease and therefore doesn't blame the patient for the symptoms. You see the guilt behind the bragging. You see the fear behind the need for control. You see the deep sadness behind the relentless, toxic positivity. And you stop engaging with the mask. You start recognizing the pain that built it. You finally understand that most people aren't dangerous. They're just scared. And once you see that, you stop needing to fight them. You stop taking someone else's trauma and making it your truth. You stop making their dysfunction your responsibility. You don't become weaker, you become unshakable. Not because you are cold, but because you are finally, devastatingly awake. Devastatingly awake. This awakening inevitably turns inward. It forces you to confront the most uncomfortable truth of all. You are also a pattern. You also wear a mask. This is the end of hiding from yourself. You start to catch your own leaks. You notice the way your voice changes when you're trying to impress someone. You see the way you deflect when a topic makes you feel vulnerable.